right, well, it seems like folks have kind of slowed down with trickling in, so we'll go ahead and get started. Today we are here with Katie Barton and Nicole Williams of Wings for Kids, which is a social emotional learning organization out of, I guess they operate everywhere, but Nicole and Katie specifically are joining us from Charleston, South Carolina today, so we're giving them a big Virginia welcome. And they are going to have a session entitled Ready, SET, Set, Go, Building a Culture of SEL in your program. So to introduce Katie, Katie Barton is a social emotional learning trainer at Wings for Kids. Since 2012, Katie has served Wings in multiple capacities: after school mentor, program associate, and program coordinator and coach. Her deep knowledge of social and emotional learning comes from her many years as a practitioner in applying concrete methods, techniques, and approaches with underserved youth. Katie develops and facilitates internal staff trainings, leads in-school, district-wide workshops, and trains after-school providers from coast to coast. She earned her undergraduate degree from the College of Charleston. Nicole Williams is the curriculum and training manager for Wings for Kids. She has extensive experience in behavior management, program implementation, coaching, and training design and delivery. She has presented at the national and local youth development conferences, trained youth development professionals and educators around the country, and designed internal and external professional development sessions for nonprofit and school district personnel. Nicole has an undergraduate degree and Master's of Arts in Teaching with a focus in elementary education from James Madison University, which is also where VPOST is hosted, so yay. Prior to joining Wings, Nicole worked as an elementary classroom teacher. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Katie and Nicole. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Christine. Great intros. So y'all already kind of met me and Nicole. Just a little background about Wings is we're a nonprofit that is really solely focused on social emotional learning and developing those skills in at-risk youth. And we kind of do that in a variety of ways. Like Christine mentioned, we've got several direct service sites, so after school programming across the Southeast, and then we have partnerships across the United States with like-minded individuals. And then we also do trainings and professional developments like this one today with people with similar beliefs. Christine kind of already gave you our background with Wings, so we've both held a lot of different roles. And so we're excited to kind of bring that knowledge and experience here today. Obviously, it's a little different than what we would normally do since we're in this virtual world, but we still plan to have a collaborative workshop because we can all gain knowledge from each other and all of our experiences. So we'll be asking for participation in a couple of different ways, but the first way is with the chat function on Zoom. And I know a lot of us have become used to Zoom in this new world that we're living in, but just for everybody's clarification, to use the chat function, it's just down at the bottom. You hit the More button, and then it should have the chat function, and it'll pop up, and you can chat in there with either a question that you have for us throughout the training, or we might pose a question and ask for your participation through the chat function. So right now we can go ahead and practice with it. So again, just hit that More button and then hit chat. And if everybody could type in the emotion that they are feeling right now. So just chat in just a one word, quick emotion that you are feeling right now in the chat box, just to get us a little practice. All right, we see happy, excited, anticipation, hungry. Yeah, I just had to eat a snack myself. Content, tired, calm, content, positive, love that one, yes. Tired, we got a lot of tired. I know this is the last, if we've been doing this all day, it is the last session of the day, so we appreciate you guys sticking it out with us. And we've got some calm in there too. Okay, great. So it looks like we've got the chat function down. And then the other way we're going to kind of collaborate with each other is we might pose some questions and ask for people to speak out. So we obviously understand that we're in a different setting right now than we normally would be in. So background noises might occur, and we can all be kind of empathetic with that while you're sharing out. But when it is time, when we ask for volunteers, if you could just use the raise hand function, and then me or Nicole will unmute you when it's time to share out. Okay, so now that we got all the nitty gritty out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. And Christine said, our session today is Ready, Set, Go, Building a Culture of SEL. So a couple of our goals for today are to develop an understanding for the 5 competencies of SEL. And I know some of us are probably already familiar with these. So we won't take too much time on that, but just kind of diving a little bit deeper with how we infuse them at Wings. Learning the fundamentals of an SEL culture, how you can infuse some of the tips that we're going to share today of SE skill building into your program. And then, you know, we are in this virtual world right now, so really how to incorporate social emotional teaching with that virtual lens. So first and foremost, I'm going to share with you guys a video of our programs manager who provides kind of a more in-depth glance about what SEL is and how these skills really apply to both our students and adults. And while we're watching it, if you could just think about really what resonates with you. So what are some things that really stick out to you during this video? And I will ask for some to share kind of what your takeaways are from this video, okay? All righty. Can everybody hear it? Oops, sorry.
I'm Cheryl Hollis, the Director of Programs with Wings for Kids. As the Director of Programs, I oversee our direct service programming across the 3 states that we operate in. I have a team of staff who ensure the quality and fidelity of our programming and making sure that our kids are learning and growing in their social and emotional skills. Social and emotional learning, also known as SEL, is the way in which kids and adults learn the skills that are necessary for them to thrive in life. So they are learning how to build relationships, manage their emotions, step into the shoes of others. They are also learning how to be resilient in the face of change or challenge. SEL is very important because you're able to meet goals when you can be yourself, you can communicate with others in a positive way. And so ultimately, it's needed everywhere and it's needed for everyone. The best time to begin teaching SEL skills to children is as early as possible, but at Wings for Kids, we focus on K through 5, and that is because it lays the foundation for their success in life, but also academically. The 5 competencies of SEL are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. Self-awareness is the ability to identify and communicate one's emotions. You're also able to talk about your strengths, your weaknesses, and how you project who you are to the world. Self-management is the ability to control oneself in any given moment. When you're feeling really excited about something, you have to be, one, socially aware, because you want to make sure that you express excitement without hurting the feelings of others, but you want to be conscious of that. Or it could be when you're really upset, angry about something, and managing one's impulses to react. Social awareness includes things like being able to step into other people's shoes, so having empathy for them, understanding that everyone is unique and we all have differences, and appreciating those differences. Another SEL skill is responsible decision making, and responsible decision making is all about choices, and we have to be responsible in how we make those choices, and that means being thoughtful. The last social and emotional skill is relationship skills, and that's about being a friend and building trust. So when you say you're going to do something, you follow through and you do it. The types of kids that benefit the most from SEL, I would say all types of kids benefit, no matter where they're from, what they look like, what school they attend, what their background is. All types of kids benefit. Adults too. The biggest challenge that SEL faces today would be how focused we are on teaching it to kids, when we really should be focused on how adults are practicing these skills. And I think that that is so important, because I think the best teachers of SEL are adults who, one, are practicing these skills themselves, and who have strong relationships and an element of trust with the youth that they're engaged with. At Wings, we have a common language in which we communicate these social and emotional skills, and it's through our pledge. It is a kid-friendly way to teach kids these skills, because it's the one thread that holds us all together. It's the way in which we communicate with each other. It's the words that we live by. Wings for Kids is amazing. It's a blessing. It's joy. It's a family. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. It's taught me so much. I'm able to give back to the organization who's given so much to me. If every child can have what it is that we do here, this world will be such a better place.
Okay. I can't tell you how many times I have seen that video, and it still gives me chills at the end when Cheryl starts to get a little emotional. But in the chat function, if anybody had any big, takeaways from the video, you can share it in there for me, please. Anything that really resonated with you, or you thought was impactful from the video. I know personally, for me, it really resonates with me when she talks about, how this is not just for students, right? These aren't just for elementary schoolers. These are for middle schoolers. These skills are needed in high schoolers. These skills are needed for us as adults as well, if we want to be able to teach our kids these SE skills. We've got to at first develop them in ourselves and model these with our students as well. Yeah, no matter what the program is, this can be, incorporated to the school day, to any type of after school program, any extracurricular. Yeah, no matter what it is for everyone. Awesome. Thank you, Charlene. Yeah, if every kid had this since they were little, the world would definitely be a better place. I'm sure we can all kind of self-reflect on us right now when she was talking about those skills and where we think we lie in the spectrum of each of these skills, and maybe even thinking back to when we were children, right? If we had been able to have this program, kind of what the different skills we would have or be able to display would be. Yeah. Thank you, Christine, for sharing. So like Cheryl talked about, at Wings, we really break it down into these 5 competencies of SEL. And we've taken this from CASEL, so the Collaborative for Academic, Social, Emotional Learning. And they're really one of the founders, one of the biggest people who are behind this SEL movement. And so Cheryl talked about it in her video, but the way we infuse this with our students is through something called the Words to Live By. And we call it the pledge sometimes too. So that's how Cheryl referenced it in her video. But what this is really just a kid-friendly way to talk to our students about social emotional learning. So we consider this really to be the ABCs of SEL. So just like we have to learn our ABCs before we read and write, we believe that we have to learn these words to live by before we can become socially, emotionally smart. So, obviously we don't expect every single program or every single person to use this, but similar to VPOST, we do have the belief that a common language is really important for our students, and ensures that students are hearing, the same message no matter what adult they are working with. So, you might already have that common language that infuses SEL. This is something that you might want to tweak or come up with a different intro and a different ending for your students, or maybe some of these lines really resonate for you, or you think they could be super useful for your students in your program. So when we break down the words to live by, we see that each of these kind of blocks is aligned with one of those 5 competencies we just talked about. So that first one is all about self-awareness. So our students might not even be knowledgeable about the word self-awareness, right? But this kid-friendly language, they would be able to say, I love and accept who I am on the inside, expressing their emotions. They would know the importance of that because it's in the words to live by, and our staff is infusing these words in their daily kind of conversations with the students as well. Then this next one is all about self-management, so controlling ourselves. There's tons of surprises that can happen throughout the day. This is actually the one that we start our programs focused on, is that self-management, just because we a lot of our students have difficulty with this one, especially at the beginning of the year. And so this is the one that we actually start our programs with. Then this next one is all about responsible decision making. So there's choices, making sure that we take accountability for the choices we make as well. Sometimes this can even be hard for us as adults. So it's super important to try and teach our students as early as possible, like Cheryl mentioned. Then the next one is all about social awareness. So this is one that a lot of people are familiar with, that empathy. So our students would use the words like unique, stepping into other people's shoes, trying to get to know more about others. And then this last one is relationship skills. So all about teamwork, being kind and caring to each other. And so that's how we have broken it down into our kid-friendly kind of common language, which we call the words to live by. This can be found on our website, wingsforkids.org, if you are interested in using it or adapting it for your students. And each of these 5 skills can kind of be broken down into more specific skills or behaviors. And later in the workshop, me and Nicole will break these down a little bit more for you and give y'all some tips, like we talked about at the beginning, one of our goals that y'all can utilize in your program. So I'm going to pass it over to Nicole.
All right, thanks, Katie. So hopefully you kind of gathered after watching the video about our SEL program that this isn't something that we just do for 10 minutes a day or for a block of time when we have our students in after school, but it's really something that we try to think of as a whole student approach. And if you look here at this model, we have our SET model, and in the middle is are the adults that practice these skills. So we have those 5 competencies that are broken down: the self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. And it really just boils down to who are the adults that are running these programs, and all the adults, not just the counselors, not just the site directors or people that are managing the programs, but down to bus drivers or cafeteria workers. And how are they all creating this community where there's a culture that SEL can thrive? So we do this by really ensuring that everyone is set, and that means to be supportive, engaging, and teaching. So I'd like to start us off by just thinking about what are some adjectives that come to mind. So we have a few up here on the screen, but what are some adjectives that come to mind when you think about filling in the blank for a supportive leader is blank? So for example, I would maybe write down a supportive leader is fair. So I'd like for us to, again, use that chat feature and write down all the adjectives that come to mind when we think about a supportive adult or a supportive leader in our programs after school. So my example was fair. What are some other adjectives that come to mind when you think about supportive adults? Positive, trustworthy, humble, compassionate, listens, caring, honest. Love all of these. Awesome. Thank you. Real, genuine, open. Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go to share with you some of the adjectives that we use to describe support, and all of these answers are really fantastic. So I would encourage you to go back and brainstorm with other adults in your programs and decide, how do you want to define your program? How do you want people to describe you in your after school program, and how would they want all the adults that work there to be or to show in their actions? So we have ours: fair, trusting, encouraging, empathetic, positive, trustworthy, and being a good listener, which I think some of these were already mentioned in the chat box. But when we say fair, we're talking about being consistent and not treating all of the students exactly the same, but meeting them exactly where they are. Trusting, we're talking about really giving the students the benefit of the doubt. So making sure that you don't always put students in these boxes of, oh, this is this student, or this is so-and-so's sibling, we know how they're going to be, but really just trying to give the students the benefit of the doubt and making sure that you're trusting them, making sure you're giving them a fresh start each day. Encouraging, being your kids' biggest cheerleaders. So I think I saw someone saying super caring, enthusiastic, compassionate, all those things. So making sure you're always encouraging them, you're always challenging them to do better, giving them that high five, that support. Being empathetic, making sure that you are stepping into their shoes. Do you know the backgrounds they're coming from? Are you kind of trying to gain their perspective on things? Being positive, so with your words, your tone, and your body language, making sure that everyone has that positive language, that positive body language, because that can completely change your atmosphere or your culture if you have adults that are constantly yelling or constantly pointing out the negatives. Making sure that you're trustworthy. So you as the adult, making sure that you follow through with what you say you're going to do and keep your promises as sacred. And then also finally being a good listener, making sure that you really encourage kids to share and to come to you and to be an active listener, and making sure that students feel heard when they do talk to you. So I did want to mention that when we were preparing for this, we looked at VPOST best practices, and this one really aligns with having active and engaged learning. Or I'm sorry, not this one, but the next one we're going to talk about is engage. So I want you to think back to that best practice that you all have about being active, engaged learning, and think about, again, in the chat box, what are some adjectives that you would describe or that you guys have already come up with for your best practice on how an engaging leader should be. So again, we should be in our chat box putting in any adjectives that you would use or that you use in your best practice of how to be an engaging leader. So ready to advocate, ready to listen, ready to lift up, provides leadership and opportunities, being good listeners. All right, so we'll share with you, oh, we have some more coming in. Thinking outside of the box, provide positive responses, being reliable and consistent. Good, these are all awesome answers. Thank you for sharing. Getting input from students, I think that's a really big one. Being sincere and honest. Yes, kids definitely recognize when you're not telling the truth or when you're not being genuine. I love that. So we have 3 adjectives that we use to describe engage, and they are creative, energetic, and relatable. So creative is really thinking outside of the box. I think someone chatted that already. And really trying to make the ordinary extraordinary, right? The kids have been in school all day long. They're coming to your after school program. It can kind of get redundant. So how can we make these everyday routines more extraordinary, more engaging for students? Maybe by getting student input, by being reliable for them and consistent. Also making sure that you're energetic. So your energy really kind of dictates the climate of the day and controls the climate of the program. So if you're enthusiastic, then the students are going to feed off of that energy and be enthusiastic. You can make the most boring activity really exciting and engaging for students if you're really into it and they're going to follow along with you. And then last, we like to describe engaging as relatable. So making sure that your students see you as someone who gets them and who understands and is able to kind of bring things in that are relatable to them or that are relevant to what's going on in their world. And so then we're gonna go on to our next and final letter, the T in our SET approach, which is being a teacher. So first and foremost, teachers or leaders who teach are role models. So I really like this quote that children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. And I just love that. Even for me personally, I have 3 young children, and I have a 5-month-old that I've been kind of like taken care of, and my other 2 older ones have seen me do this. And my daughter, who's 2.5, she definitely imitates me. So she's still not like as verbal. She's only a 2-year-old, but she definitely like imitates me with my child and what I do, and like bounces the baby, her little baby doll, and pats her back and everything. So they might not always be listening or be good listeners, but they're always definitely going to imitate you. So you must really practice what you're teaching. So if you want your students to be good listeners and listen to you, you must really practice being good listeners to them. Or if you want everyone to treat others with kindness, then you really need to make sure that you're kind of self-reflecting and being kind to all of your students. So really making sure that you practice what you teach. You also want to capitalize on all the moments that can be teachable moments. So it's important to be observant and aware of those moments that you can really kind of make it a learning experience for your students. And teachable moments aren't these planned things that you can write lesson plans out for, but how can you just seize the moment and make it a learning experience for your student? And then finally, being thoughtful. So are you being thoughtful on how you reach all of your students? Are you being thoughtful in maybe behavior management strategies that you can use? Are you being thoughtful in how you can capitalize on those teachable moments? So in order for you to be a good teacher of social emotional learning, especially in this online platform that you might have to do with your after school programs, you have to be very intentional about it and making sure that you kind of have that at the forefront of your mind. So we're going to go over some ways that you can now practice to be SET with your students and being more intentional about teaching these social emotional skills. And I'm going to pass it back to Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, so this first one that we want to dive into is all about self-awareness. So we see on the left-hand side, this blue is a stanza taken from our Words to Live By. So that common language that we use. And it's all about loving and accepting yourself and sharing your emotions. On the right-hand side, these target behaviors are the behaviors we would expect to see from an adult or a student who is displaying high self-awareness. So the ability to describe how they are feeling. So being able to identify and label their emotion that they're feeling. The next one, giving an opinion when asked. So not following the group, being able to speak for themselves, their own opinions. The ability to ask somebody for feedback. So sometimes that can be even difficult for us as an adults, right? To be open and receptive to not only that positive feedback, but that corrective feedback as well. Showing an awareness of their personal strengths. So being able to identify those and utilize those to their advantage. And then the ability to teach another person to do something. So that kind of aligns with, identifying your personal strengths. You could utilize those strengths to teach someone something new as well. So at Wings, we try to expand our students' emotional vocabulary. So oftentimes people might use the same old emotion words over and over again, right? Like happy, mad, sad. But if we're able to expand our emotional vocabulary, you'll better be able to describe your emotions. So for example, a student who is saying that they are mad might actually be feeling disappointed, and understanding that kind of deeper level of their emotion will help us as the adults better understand, be able to step into their shoes, understand kind of what they're going through. So right now, I'd like everyone to kind of self-reflect and think about your own emotional vocabulary and how you would rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 being, we're really stuck with that happy, mad, sad. 5 being, you've got an emotion word of the day and you're trying to use all kinds of different emotions or all kinds of different words to describe how you are feeling. So in the chat box, you can just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Again, 1 being kind of that lower scale and 5 being we're really going above and beyond with our vocabulary in regards to emotion words. Yeah, so we've got some 4s, some 3s. Rachel, thank you. I'm able to identify a large range of emotion words, but could be better using them. Yeah. So we might have an understanding of what all these emotion words mean, but in the moment, really being able to say, instead of I'm feeling really mad, no, I'm feeling very frustrated, and kind of going to that deeper level. Yeah. Okay, we've got some 3s. Yeah, I think me personally, I would probably rate myself like 3 or 4. And I've been doing this for a really long time. Definitely when I first started off with Wings, it was like a 1 for me. So it does, it just takes practice along and along. But yeah, it looks like we're all kind of in that similar range of like a 3 to 4. So I appreciate you guys sharing that out. We've got another 3 coming in. Yeah. So this is something that really helped me to go from that 1 now to like a 3 or 4 range. And this is a tip we use with our students in our programs as well. And this is our emotional alphabet. So once you have kind of established a relationship with a student, a technique that we have where us as the adults are able to use this emotional alphabet is a technique called stating your feelings strongly. So it's really important that before we utilize this technique, we have a bond with our student. So this is something that I definitely wouldn't utilize on the first day that I'm working with a child, but once that relationship is established, you can state your feelings strongly. So what that means is that if a student's displaying a behavior that you really do not like, it's a negative behavior, you want them to change, you would state how their behavior is making you feel. So by doing that, you're empowering the student to try to fix their behavior on their own. You're just stating how their behavior is kind of impacting you. It's important to use this emotional alphabet right here and utilize a wide range of emotion words so that the student can really step into your shoes and see how you're feeling, okay? If I'm constantly stating, you know, Miss Katie is so frustrated right now, you know, the students are probably gonna think, well, you know, Miss Katie is just always frustrated, there's nothing we can do about it. So we really need to make sure that we're using a wide range of emotion words. So for example, you know, a student is leaning back in their chair. So instead of just saying stop or sit the correct way, please, you can state your feelings strongly. So I would utilize this technique and I could say, oh my goodness, you are making me feel so worried sitting like that. I wouldn't want you to fall backwards and hurt yourself. Please sit in the chair with all 4 legs on the ground. Okay, so that's how I would address that student in the situation. You notice that my tone kind of changed. It's hard to see, you know, my body language in this, but when we're utilizing this technique, it's really important that our tone of voice, our body language, if the students can see it, and our facial expressions really match the emotion that we're saying we're feeling. So with the virtual platform, this would be a technique that you would utilize when the students could actually see you, right? So it'd have to be in a Zoom like this, or another type of virtual platform where you can see the students and they can see you for this technique to really work. So we're going to practice it right now. In this time of kind of being inside a lot and not really the ability to move around freely, you know, a lot of emotions can arise. So I'd like for everyone to kind of think about a way you could use this technique with someone you've had an interaction with, maybe at home or even virtually. And we can just use the chat box to you know, do this example, but when we're working with the students, we would obviously, you know, want to show our video camera. But I can start an example of this. You know, I've had a roommate who we haven't had a dishwasher, and so, you know, it's up to us to kind of do our dishes, and they have the bad habit of not doing their dishes. So I could use this technique and state my feelings strongly with my roommate and say, you know, it really frustrates me that you never do the dishes. Okay, so, you know, I'm just expressing myself to them. I have that relationship with that roommate, and so hopefully they would, you know, understand where I'm coming from, want to change that behavior because I'm feeling this negative emotion. So again, anybody can use the chat function, just really what emotion it makes you feel and what that behavior is how you would kind of state your feelings strongly and utilize this technique. Can we go back and, yes, we can go see the entire alphabet. Great question. There we go. Yeah, so everybody can kind of look at this, try and use something, you know, other than happy, mad, and sad. All right, thank you, Nicole. So she said, I'm feeling annoyed that you listen to the TV so loud when I am trying to work from home. Yes, perfect example. So she just said how she's feeling and kind of what the behavior is that's making her feel that way. And, you know, she didn't say, Happy, mad, sad, she used that annoyed word. All right, Blair, I'm feeling bummed about not being able to work with people face to face. Yes, I think we can all definitely relate there. Such a weird time right now, but yes, feeling bummed. And that's an emotion word that we don't really hear that much, so that's perfect. Trying to expand our emotional vocabulary. Maybe just a couple more. I know you guys got it in you. This being at home, you got to have tons of emotions coming out. Maybe it's a roommate, maybe it's a kid, maybe it's your spouse. So when my kids don't clean up after themselves, I am reluctant to pull out more activities. Yes, that would make me reluctant as well. And then just taking that step further would be, including what emotion that makes you feel. Yes, you're reluctant to pull out more activities, but what emotion on top of that are you feeling? I'm feeling frustrated about how schools will reopen. Yes, I think it's more neat. Yeah, I think we all empathize with that. When is it going to happen? That's very frustrating, right? Blair, I'm hopeful that we will be together soon. Yeah, so another good emotion word that you use there. And then I see Charles said, I'm feeling discouraged that my daughter is not hungry to finish her degree. Yeah, so discouraged is a good one too. Hopefully, if you use that technique with your daughter, maybe that will be the motivation she needs right there, Charles. Okay, great job, you guys. The next one we're going to look at is all about self-management. So on the right-hand side, we see that line of the words to live by, all about those surprises that happen. I think this is really pertinent right now. There's lots of surprises going around in our world as the adults and in our students' lives. And then it's talking about controlling themselves. So if we look on that left-hand side, those are the target behaviors. So our students who are high in self-management would display these, and even we as adults. So adjusting well to change of plans, staying calm when faced with a challenge, waiting their turn, not being impatient when they're waiting their turn, being able to focus on a task despite everything else that might be going on, and then being able to perform the steps of a task in order. So this is another tip that we use at Wings and that hopefully you guys can utilize with your students, whether it be in person or in the virtual world. And it is reset and relax. So kids often let certain things set them off, right? So some kids might become very upset about a broken pencil, somebody stepping on their book bag, or just even hearing that word no. So it's important for kids to realize kind of what set them off so that they can start dealing with those feelings. So kids need to learn how to cope with those situations in the future to avoid losing control. So we use R&R as a quick and common phrase to kind of help our students pause for a moment before reacting. So it's really resetting. So identifying what that trigger was or what happened that really set them off, and then the ability to relax. So trying to relax your mind and body to calm down. So let's think about in our, now that we're in this virtual world, what are some things that we can kind of carry over from our in-person when working with the students to this virtual lens? And maybe you've already started to utilize some techniques that we'd love to hear and love for you to share out in that chat box. So kind of what are some things that when we're talking to our students about R&R, resetting and relaxing, how can they utilize this in the virtual world. So maybe having a hand signal for students to display if they are feeling a negative emotion. So that would be, in this virtual world, obviously we'd have to be able to see each other for that one. But I've seen it done in person as well, and it seems to work well. Maybe implementing brain breaks throughout. So helping our students by already including kind of some relaxing brain breaks. So maybe a brain break is, let's all take some deep breaths together. Maybe, all right, everybody go get a glass of water, whatever it might be. Another example, maybe taking some relaxing breathing or stretches. If we know the next activity we're about to do is a really difficult one or one that our students struggle with, maybe having those breathing exercises or stretches before kind of an intense focus activity. Can anyone else think of any that you can utilize in this virtual realm? You can just chat it in the chat box. I'm sure some of us have already utilized some ways for our students to kind of relax. It's definitely a stressful time right now. And so I think, I'm sure some of us have already utilized it. Yeah, so encouraging them to take breaks from social media in their day-to-day life. I think that's one that I can definitely take for myself as well. Sometimes it is easy to get caught off in social media. And so taking some time away from electronics to really R&R, that's a great example. Go on virtual tours to different countries. So yeah, using that creative side that Nicole talked about from Engage, to keep their interests up, less screen time, going for a walk. Yeah, so if our students are at the computer all day or inside all day, really encouraging them to go for a walk and then focus on happy memories. Yeah, that's a great one. So maybe having a brain break that incorporates different, that incorporates having them share out a happy memory, right? If they need to relax, that's a good way to kind of bring it back and relax. Perfect. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so that's all about self-management. Our next one is all about responsible decision-making. So we see up at the top, again, that line from the words to live by or a pledge, and it's really all about choices. So not only understanding that everyone has choices that they can make, but also taking full responsibility. So right here, all those target behaviors that we would want a student or an adult who has high skills and responsible decision-making to display. So showing that good judgment, accepting responsibility, learning from their experiences. So if they made a poor choice on Monday, hopefully they have learned from it and are making a better choice when put in a similar situation later that week. Seeking advice, so being able to come to us if they need advice, and then following the example of a positive role model. So one tip that we have for our students is, and for our staff, is showing their ID. So showing their ID really stands for saying, I did. So you take responsibility for your actions. These can be good or bad choices that we've made, but really taking responsibility for them and not blaming others or outside factors. So saying, I did. So it could be as simple as a student saying, I did make a good grade on my last quiz. That would be showing their ID for something positive, and maybe showing their ID for something negative could be something like, I did run in the hallway when I was supposed to walk. So it's really just them taking accountability for their actions. This would be something good for either an opening or a closing to a day. Sometimes we incorporate it, especially for them showing their positive when they're showing their ID. So, you know, in this crazy world that we're living in, it's good to start the day off with something positive and maybe end the day with something positive as well. So this is something that you might be able to implement in your programs with your students as well. Okay, then next up, I'm going to pass it back to Nicole to talk about social awareness.
Yeah, so you can see on the left-hand side, that is the stanza from our Words to Live By, that common language that we use to talk about social awareness, that others are unique and to step into other people's shoes. And then we have on the right-hand side, the target behaviors. So really making sure, I'm not going to read them to just for sake of time, but making sure that these are the actions or the behaviors we're looking for students to display when we know that they are working on their social awareness skills or that they have high social awareness. And this also, I wanted to point out, aligns with your VPOST best practice of celebrating culture and diversity. So I loved how those all aligned with kind of these target behaviors as well. So something that we like to use is a proactive technique called MESS. It's an acronym, MESS, that really stands for being proactive to avoid any of those unwanted or undesired behaviors or avoid a mess. So you as an adult, if you're stepping into your student's shoes and thinking about, okay, they've been in school all day before they come to our program, or maybe something's going on at home, or maybe it's a holiday, like maybe the students are really excited from a school pep rally that was going on or something. Let's step into their shoes. How can we be proactive before they come to us? How can we make our program fun that day? What can we do to engage our students and make the little things a little bit more exciting or engaging for them? How can we set our expectations? So if we're thinking about this virtual lens, they might be different than their expectations when they're actually at the program, but maybe the expectations when they're signing in on the computer is that they have to show their camera and say hello, or maybe they need to make sure that they all take turns listening to each other, or that the expectation is that they use the chat feature. The first S is show them how to help. So this really empowers students to be the helpers and be supportive. So that helps that social emotional community that everyone is supportive. And so really thinking of ways that you can ask your students to help you out. So maybe assigning some type of job for a student to be, or maybe you can ask someone to come up with a chant or a word that they want to say at the end to all kind of leave one another. Or maybe you can ask them to pick a song that they want to play and like all dance to or something to get some energy out. So really just showing students how to help you. And then the last one is staying busy. So again, the point of this technique is to make sure that students are being engaged in a way that they're not displaying an unwanted or undesired behavior. So making sure that you're keeping them busy. So if it is in person in your after school programs, what can you do to keep your students busy? Maybe it's walking in the hallway, they need to count how many steps it takes, or maybe they're on some kind of hunt looking for the letters in the hallway and trying to find all the letters of the alphabet. If you're in the virtual world and kind of hosting some kind of Zoom meeting or something, some kind of virtual gathering, a way to stay busy might be for them to maybe during like a read aloud counting, or keeping track of a word that you say throughout the story, or maybe drawing a picture, doodling while they're listening. So just something to kind of keep them occupied and keep them still focused and engaged in what you're doing. So just for sake of time, I'm not going to have us do anything in our chat box, but I just want you to kind of think to yourself, if we are to go back to our programs either this summer or in the fall, what are some ways that I can utilize this technique when I'm thinking about stepping into my students' shoes? Or if we have to go with a virtual lens, what are some ways that I can still make it engaging, making it fun, setting some kind of expectation, showing students how to help, and staying busy. So just thinking about using social awareness to still help support their social emotional skills. And then finally, we have our relationship skills stanza. So the last competency of social emotional learning. And on the right-hand side, you can see the stanza from our words to live by and the common language that go along with relationship skills. So we have listening, being kind and caring, being supportive, trusting. And then on the left-hand side, you have our target behaviors. So someone that has really high relationship skills, they're able to do all these things. They're able to offer to help or compliment or so this one aligns with the VPOST best practice of building relationships. And we have a ritual that we use in our program called Praise and Praise. And so this is really just, you can name it anything that you want to name it. It might be a bright spot or it might be a shout out. But really how we use this technique is you would just call out somebody's name and say, hey, so-and-so, can I give you some praise? And then that person would answer or respond, yes, sure. And then you would give them praise. And we really try to encourage our students to give praise about something, an action or behavior someone else did or a characteristic and not just a physical attribute. So we try to discourage students just from saying, I really like your outfit today, or I really like the way you wore your hair, but more about an action or behavior that they did. So thank you for helping me get my homework done, or can I give you some praise for inviting me to play a game of tag out on the playground? So this is just another really good community builder of building relationships, sharing out praise, and having students practice giving praise to one another in front of their peers and in front of the adults that work within the programs. So I wanted to just end the session with, would anyone like to give anybody else praise? And you can either unmute or raise your hand so we can unmute you, or you can just write it in the chat box. But I wanted to give a little haze and praise to Christine. So, hey, Christine, can I give you some praise? Thank you for giving, and she just said yes in the chat box. So thank you for giving Katie and I such a warm introduction and welcoming us to the rest of the VPOST group.
Thank you. Well, can I just jump back in and reciprocate some haze and some praise and say thank you to both of you all for presenting. And then the other thing I want to say is thank you to everybody that stuck with us through the afternoon. You know, it's not always easy sitting on the computer for like 6 hours. So thank you all for being here with us.
Yeah. And then Katie's just going to go to the last slide just with our information. So if anyone else has any last minute thoughts or questions or wants to add some more praise, feel free, but we do want to be mindful of your time and end on time as well.